All over Britain, there are archaeological sites that are too dangerous to access or excavate. They could contain unique and valuable evidence of our past, which, if not investigated, will be lost forever. EXA is a team of highly skilled archaeologists. Katie Hurst, in charge of excavation. Alice Roberts, doctor and expert in human bones. Meg Waters, geophysicist and digital imaging specialist. All experts in their chosen fields who are determined to get into these inhospitable places to forensically assess, survey and extract the evidence. The expedition leader will be me, Mark Davis, volcanologist, climber, caver and diver. This is archaeology on the very edge. This week, we are laying siege to the most northerly and isolated Iron Age fortress in the British Isles. This is Burgi Geo in Shetland, a narrow promontory perched on top of 200 feet high sea cliffs. These few stone blocks clinging to the edge are thought to be all that remains of an Iron Age building that must be over 2,000 years old. But what kind of building? Some people think it could be a fortress, others a ceremonial or ritual site. The fact is that no one knows for sure. This is so remote and the site is so precipitous that only a few archaeologists have ever made it out here. We're on an archaeological rescue mission. The Bergie is slipping into the sea, so we're going to have to tread carefully on this crumbling rock to extract any evidence. But before we can do that, we first have to get to the site. Nearer to the Arctic Circle than it is to London, Burgi Geo is at the northernmost tip of Yell in Shetland. After an epic 900-mile drive north from London, the vehicles can go no further. We've arrived at Gloop. This is Gloop Voe, Voe being the Shetland word for sea loch or fjord. This body of water separates us from the archaeology way over there. Now the general plan is for us to ferry the equipment across the water, haul it to the site using quad bikes, but the team on the other hand have opted to circumnavigate the Voe using a more traditional means of transport. Katie, why are we walking?
Well, there's been absolute torrential rain for the last 2 weeks and the moors are almost impossible by quad bike. So it's actually much easier for us to walk along the Voe, up onto the hills and then down to the site. But it's also really important for us to have a look at the landscape, see where our site is set in the landscape.
Our journey from Gloop, along the narrow sheep tracks along the Voe to Bergie, has taken us through a landscape virtually unchanged since the last ice age. Even today, this is a sparsely populated land, with only a handful of small sheep farms or crofts. I can't imagine anyone at any time in history wanted to settle out here. Yet people are thought to have lived up here for millennia. Fragmentary traces of their settlements are scattered across these hills.
Yeah, basically with the end of the Voe there, we've got to go up the valley, which is just right behind us, up the stream there, over the hill, across the peat moor, and then down to our site.
It's quite remote, that site.
Yeah, it is. It just strikes me as really odd that it's so remote.
Yeah.
Why would you want to put anything there?
There could be a reason maybe why they did settle out there, and I think if we look at the landscape, maybe they came here with their ships and had something going on down here, but then actually may have gone just right up where we're going to walk and over to the site.
Let's go and see. Let's go and see how easy it is to have birthed here and walked across to this settlement. We've given ourselves 4 hours to make our way across the hill of Vigon down to the Bergie, across the most barren, wet and remote peat bog in Europe. On the other side of the bog, our intrepid band of quad bike Sherpas are still bringing in all our equipment and supplies to set up base camp, our home for the next few days. The island of Yell, compared to other places in Shetland, is unknown archaeological territory, with only a handful of prehistoric and Viking sites found or excavated. Archaeologists have known about Burgi Geos since the 19th century, but the site is so remote that no one has ever attempted an excavation. These peat moors have been laid down over hundreds of thousands of years and could be covering an untold wealth of archaeological information.
This is an unusual landscape. I mean, there's lots of black peat down in the Brecon Beacons down in South Wales, and I'm used to walking on that. But up here, this is just punctuated with lots of standing water as well, and it's making navigation a complete pain in the backside.
I think it's a stone, Mark. It's a
stone?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's really weird.
Gravestones?
There's a load on that little lump
There's a
there.
load over there as well. These have been transported from elsewhere, so you wouldn't find these on top of up here in peat bogs. These are the deepest peat bogs in Europe. I mean, they're over 10 meters deep, in fact, probably even the world. So to find rock like that sitting up on top of you here, it can come from two possibilities. It can come from the glaciers, so during the glacial period, the glaciers would have stripped these out, ripped these out of some mountain somewhere, some valley, tunneled on down as it migrated south, and then when it retreated, left these behind.
Drop them as erratics.
Erratics, that's exactly it. But I don't think so. The other thing is that they've been transported in.
But it looks almost that it's been shaped.
For sure. I think that's definitely been shaped because it's actually been carved that way. I mean, this is the natural.
Well, none of these rocks are marked on the map at all. I don't think these have ever been.
They're not marked on the rocks. Do you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to go and, there's quite a few of them. Just go and have a look to see if there's signs of the other ones being, constructed in the same way, shaped in the same way.
I would like to take a few photographs of these and get some measurements as well before we head off. At the widest point.
They have the appearance and size of grave markers, but they shape like miniature Neolithic monuments, and they spread out over several hundred square meters, so it doesn't look like an ancient cemetery.
Katie, to Mark, where have you gone? You've gone off away from the horizon.
Katie, this is Mark. I can hear you. We're immediately east of you, heading down towards Burgi Geos, but we've stopped and looked at most of the stones, and we've come across one, and it's wonderful. It's well worked, and I suggest that before the sun goes in, you definitely come down and take a look at this one. It really is a fantastic specimen.
This is so exciting, isn't it?
Look at this one.
Isn't it
It's
amazing?
huge, isn't it? This is the best one of the lot, I think.
When I was up there, it just felt as though you were being led from one stone to another.
Yeah.
You could
But why?
No, no, no.
slowly
Why would you get led to this high point?
Just a thought, but bear with me. If you stand up here, if you come down here, right in the centre, Burgi Geos is slap bang in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, why would they mark a fairway like that? Because it's marking a fairway which is about 10 meters wide.
But it might be some kind of funneling across the moors. You know, we were saying that we were getting quite lost up there. So maybe this is some kind of way of bringing people to the site.
Right. I like it. I think it's great. But purely for a navigational aid, is that what you're saying?
Well, it's a possibility, isn't it?
Right. So the walk in has been quite a convoluted process with all this standing water everywhere, but it's absolutely fantastic that we've come across all these standing stones. They're actually slabs of granite that have been shaped and placed there by someone a long time ago. That's evident from all the moss over them. Who put them there? We don't know at the moment, but a fantastic start and justifies totally walking into the site.
It's all a bit of a mystery. Could we have accidentally discovered a Neolithic system of route markers directing people to Burgi Geo? But it doesn't make sense. The Bergie is supposed to be Iron Age. Could this impressive walkway be leading us on to something much older? After yesterday's eventful 7-kilometre trek over peat bogs, in which we discovered a complex of previously unknown standing stones, then a night under canvas, under the northern lights, we were all eager to start work on the Bergie. This enigmatic ruin on top of these huge sea cliffs. But first we've got to work out an excavation strategy.
So we're right here on the site, and we've got a walkway going right out in the little spit of Burgi Geo. I think with the archaeology, what I'd like to do first is some magnetometry survey out there, because I think we can really target, hopefully, if there are hearths out there, for you to excavate down right over on top of.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying there might be hearths there, but we have no idea whether this was ever inhabited at all. It's local knowledge says this was an Iron Age fort. Whether it was occupied for any length of time and people built hearths, we just have no idea.
We don't know.
As far as the fort thing goes, I don't know, I've just got this feeling about this site with, you know, I'd probably be trashed for saying this, but it's just this walkway leading up to it, and, you know, when we sort of walked over here this morning, there's a real sort of ritual feeling to the site. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels as though this is a special place to
You
me.
see, again, you're talking about a walkway being here, but these stones here have also been interpreted as some kind of way of defending the site.
Right.
You find them in Europe and in Ireland. They're called chevaux de frise, and they're basically to stop chariots and things coming across.
Right, rather than guiding people.
Yeah.
Instead of the jagged stones lining the sides of the entrance, a chevaux de frise would have the stones aligned across the front to create a barrier to protect against horses, men and chariots. So our first objective is clear. Open a trench on this large mound at the front of the entrance. It looks too big to be a peat-covered standing stone. In fact, it has all the hallmarks of a burial mound. Before Meg can get on the Bergie to do a geophysics survey, the delivery team have to rig up a secure rope access. They can't just put their steel rope anchors in the ground anywhere. We don't want to damage the archaeology or interfere with Meg's geophysics equipment.
Discover the past with exclusive ancient history documentaries and ad-free podcasts presented by world-renowned historians from History Hit. Watch them on your smart TV or on the go with your mobile device. Download the app now to explore everything from the wonders of Pompeii to the rebellion of Boudica and the mysteries of prehistoric Scotland. Immerse yourself in the captivating stories of this remarkable era by signing up via the link in the description.
Our job is made slightly more difficult with Meg's geophysics because they can't coincide. We're using stakes that are made of steel, so that interrupts with the geophys that she's doing. So what we're going to do is run a rope from all the way back here across to the other side, where we can at least give her some form of protection for where she's going to be working on the other side, because you can't put any stakes in there.
With the rope axis secured, Meg can finally get onto the Bergie and begin work. It's essential that she gives us at least 2 dig-in targets to give us a fighting chance of understanding what was going on here. There may be other structures behind the blockhouse facade. There may be traces of burning or burial.
Excellent.
Obviously it's very steep-sided, and if you're working out there, digging and carrying stuff and surveying, it's very easy to forget where you are once you've got familiar with being out there, and just walk backwards and stumble off something. And the other danger is obviously it's really exposed here. If the winds get up, then there's every chance that we can get a situation where it's so blowy that we'll need to be out here all the time. We won't be able to just go off and leave people to dig, and then we'll need to be monitoring the situation pretty carefully.
Appearances can be deceptive. Though the site looks pretty and peaceful, North Atlantic westerlies have been known to blow here at over 150 miles per hour. Nowhere in Shetland is far from the sea, so despite enjoying a climate similar to London thanks to the Gulf Stream, the constant saltwater winds means that few crops can grow here. It does beg the question as to how the residents of the Bergie survived. And for how long? In this part of the world, normal archaeological chronology doesn't apply. The Romans didn't get this far north, so the Shetland Iron Age lasted from 500 BC to the 8th century AD, when the Vikings arrived. Shetland archaeologist Val Turner has invited us to Bergie to find some conclusive dating evidence.
We think that it's part of a blockhouse and that it's got...
What's a blockhouse?
A blockhouse. Well, it's Iron Age and it's two pieces of masonry structure with an entranceway in between. So you've got one chunk of it here, a rectangular piece of masonry. Then you had the entranceway next to it, which we've still got, and then there would have been another rectangular piece of masonry, which we've lost completely to coastal erosion.
Yeah, yeah. So what is that? Kind of like a gatehouse or the first line of defence, or?
Well, presumably it is something like a gatehouse, and we think it had structures behind it, sort of like timber buildings, and you'd expect to find post holes and things like that. And you would have like animals at the bottom, and then another story with people living on the top, because the warmth from the animals would help to keep the people warm.
Would have been a substantial structure then?
Yes, it would have been.
Burgi Geo could represent a missing link in Shetland's Iron Age story. These circular towers, known as bogs, are unique to northern Scotland, specifically Shetland. They have been excavated and dated also to the Iron Age, but do they predate or postdate our square blockhouse? Meg's Mag survey results should provide a digging target inside the structure.
What we're looking at here is the blockhouse. This is where the blockhouse feature is, just in here.
Right.
And that is a really strong feature. It's black and white. They're really high contrasting features. That's what I'm really looking for. Not necessarily burning. I can't look at the data right now and say that.
Okay.
We were planning to excavate the interior of the blockhouse, but these hotspots are far too tempting. So Katie's going to open a trench to the rear and side of the visible structures. Due to centuries of high winds, there's hardly any topsoil covering the Bergie, which should mean that the archaeology is very shallow, built onto the bedrock itself. These towering cliffs are eroding from some of the most ancient rocks in the world. They're remnants of the roots of supervolcanoes, which have left quartz veins threaded throughout the sheer cliff face. I've taken over the trench on the entrance mound. No finds, just peat and stones.
So Mark, we're actually collecting these rounded off pebbles.
Yeah. So look. Yeah, that's it. You know, you got to ask yourself why it's not jagged like the quartz that you get in the veins there, because in order to get as nice and as round as that, what you'd have to do is introduce a bit of water, so down on a beach or something like that, or you know, take a river or something like that, so it's rolling around and braiding it. Jim, there's also these are quite significant anyway, and they quartz in these sites.
Certainly through the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, you do find on sites where you can do collections of white pebbles, quartz. At the moment, nobody really knows what it means, but there's certainly some significance to it, so we should keep our eyes open.
Yeah.
Someone brought these smooth quartz pebbles to the mound. This is our first clue that this could be a ritual entranceway. Back on the Bergie, we're still searching for Iron Age evidence. Katie's trench on Meg's hotspot inside the supposed blockhouse is finally giving up some clues.
Oh, flecks of charcoal.
Oh, is that not very shallow to find charcoal at this stage?
Well, it does seem to be, but it's just really
Could these
promising
flecks of
for-
charcoal be our second clue? That this is a ritual site. With no chance of finding human bones in the acidic peat, Alice is concentrating on the bigger landscape picture.
So Val, what I'd like to do is walk right over to that headland over there. You can see some stones sticking up maybe.
Visible from the air, these circular marks along the coast could be Iron Age houses and field systems, and therefore associated with our site. But like most of the coastline, this is pretty much uncharted archaeological territory. It's pretty much uncharted for Val too. This is only her second ever trip out here. The first was by helicopter. So getting to see all this surface archaeology close up is a bit of a bonus.
This is an enclosure.
Yes, and structurally it looks very much like the Chevaux de Frise on the way to Burgi Geos.
And how old do you think this would be? Is there any way of telling?
It's really difficult to date, but it's very irregular, which does suggest it's earlier rather than later. And by earlier I mean sort of pre-medieval.
Right. So it could be Iron Age.
It could be,
Yeah.
it could be.
Okay, well let's keep going because we've still
Okay.
got a way to go before we reach
yes.
our headland. Oh wow, what's that over there?
Oh, that's the Croft of Vigon.
Though abandoned in the 19th century, crofts have their origins in Shetland's Viking past. A few hundred metres away and back a few millennia of history.
I do think it's a chamber cairn. Yeah.
You think it's a burial?
Yeah. A Neolithic burial, sort of 5,000 years or so ago.
Well, it looks about big enough for one person to fit in there at least, doesn't it?
It does, or it could be that it's the bones of several people. I mean, people could have been perhaps excarnated, i.e. left on the hillside, and individual bones collected to represent the person and put in here. And they're often heel-shaped, which means that they have a sort of curving front to them and then a rounded back.
Like a sort of fat crescent.
Yes, that's right, yes, yeah.
So within a short distance of our site, there's evidence of habitation and death representing 5,000 years of history. Though it looks barren now, thousands of years ago, temperatures were up to 3 degrees warmer, so the land around Bergie could have supported a variety of food crops. Back in the blockhouse trench, Katie has revealed the side wall of this substantial structure. The area behind is packed with rubble, probably dating from the building's collapse.
Some pottery. I know it does look like a stone, but if you just clean it up a little bit, you can see that it's made out of clay. It's been blackened probably because it's been cooked on a hearth, and it's much softer as well. You can just scrape your fingernail along it.
Our first piece of pottery, and judging by its poor quality, looks Iron Age. And there's a lot more down there. But no such luck in the Mound Trench.
I tell you what we've been finding here is lots of quartz. Now I know there's lots of quartz veining along this headland, but as soon as I saw it, it's lovely rounded surface and the edges are planed off, and you know, it's not what you would call a tool, I suppose, is it? Because you'd expect to be chipped everywhere. So
I think it's more likely that these faces have been broken off and the bit that's been broken off has been used as a tool, or been shaped to be a tool, and that's what you get left behind.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's pretty. Did they ever use it for decoration or anything like that?
Of course, yes, they do actually. Certainly in the Neolithic.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got no flint, so it takes the place of flint as well
for tools. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is it's not been found anywhere near one of these quartz veins, so
yes,
it's been brought here somehow.
Indeed, yeah.
Who knows?
Yes.
So I think the order of the day is lots of quartz at the moment.
Well, that's really interesting. I mean, I wonder if that's significant in terms of this mound and working quartz perhaps here.
Okay.
So it'd be interesting to see.
Both smooth and jagged quartz pebbles don't fit in with the defensive chevaux de frise theory. They're also not the sort of things you would find alongside a walkway. So why and how they got here remains a mystery. Jim has excavated right across the mound and has found a pile of stones, indicating a collapsed wall. This has been reinforced and packed with turfs, which are still visible in the cut of the trench. So it's definitely not a burial. It's looking more like the remains of an entranceway or perhaps a building. But with no other finds, and not wanting to destabilise the cliff edge, we're going to have to close this trench down. Our last chance to get to the bottom of this structure lies on the landward side. This flat area could have below-ground features, perhaps more standing stones.
Out here, right before the entryway to the site, it's really interesting to me because if there are any features here, pits, other stones maybe that have fallen down, things like that, I'm hoping to find them right here. And I think based on the numbers that we got in the magnetometry data actually out on the Burgi Geo, it's going to be really sensitive in here. So to get it, it's going to have to be really delicate. So just trying to be very careful.
But absolutely nothing, just solid peat. In these latitudes, at this time of year, October, our working day isn't very long. But despite the darkness, Katie's desperate to show us what she's starting to find on the Bergie.
I've put this trench over an area where Meg found this really big splodge of very high magnetic intensity.
Right, saw that, yeah.
And so what we found in exactly that place is this very large area of burning. You see around there? So this is actually within the area that's enclosed by a wall which runs all the way behind you and up to where the blockhouse structure is over there. To me it looks like a hearth at the moment. We're sitting in an area we don't really know what it is. It might be part of the blockhouse, it might be like another room, it might be an enclosure.
But you're avoiding my question. I mean, put it in context for us. It's a fire or something like that.
Yeah, it
or
looks
a
like
hearth,
a fire.
maybe,
Yeah.
or
yeah. But Val, you think there might be all sorts of wooden structures around here as well?
Well,
don't
that's the other possibility. If it's not a hearth, it could be part of a wooden structure that was behind here that has been burnt at some point.
But what does that tell us?
Well,
the fact that you think there's a
what
hearth
it says to me is that there's been human occupation here rather than for an animal.
Well, you've got probably, what, 3/4 an hour before nightfall, so
Yeah.
we need to get everyone back to base camp. You can't work on here without any lights, I'm
I
afraid.
know,
So
you're going to have to pull me away, I think, because I'm really excited about this
that's
trench.
a prospect I look forward to. We start to unravel the mysteries of Burgi Geo. We have a turf wall, and we get into the bottom of what they used the blockhouse for. But the key to this place could be this: quartz.
We are here at Burgi Geo in the far north of Shetland, trying to prove whether this enigmatic ruin perched on top of this isolated promontory is an Iron Age blockhouse. On our journey here, we discovered a strange complex of standing stones on top of this barren hill, which will need further investigation. The land around our site is riddled with archaeology, from 19th century abandoned crofts to Neolithic burial mounds, representing 5,000 years of human habitation. But why did ancient man settle in Bergie?
It appears that quartz has played an important role in shaping the lifestyle of Iron Age Shetland. Now, this white rock that I'm standing on the geological hardness scale is right up there, and it contains pods of quartz, which is even harder still, which are unique just to Burgi Geo. Now, I've walked this entire coastline, and every headland has a thin veneer of this stuff, which protects it from being eroded by North Atlantic gales and rain. That is with one exception. Burgi Geo. Someone has quarried this stuff away. This white rock cross-cuts the entire headland, and it contains pods of some of the most purest form of quartz I've ever seen. And that's incredibly important because back in prehistoric times, we are hundreds of miles from the nearest supply of flint. So this stuff could have been used as scraping tools, decorative ornaments, even arrowheads. So whoever had control of the Bergie had a valuable commodity on their hands.
These rich veins of quartz offer for me the perfect solution as to why this blockhouse may have been built. Quartz tools and arrowheads, necessities of Iron Age life, and valuable trading commodities. Last night in the blockhouse trench, Katie found traces of what looks like a hearth or fire pit, exactly where Meg's survey indicated a hot spot. Today, Alice and Meg are going to be digging another hot spot, back from the blockhouse right on the edge of the cliff. If this is another area of burn-in, it would prove that this blockhouse and adjoining structures was much larger than previously thought. To try and understand the layout of the Bergie, we first have to try and understand how much may have fallen into the sea. By laser scanning the cliffs at high resolution, slip scars and slumps become apparent. In this semicircular area alone, several thousand tons of ossite and unknown quantities of archaeology have been lost forever. Looking at the blockhouse area, it's also apparent that more than half of the structure has fallen into the sea. At least the area behind the blockhouse seems to be intact.
Well, the hearth is more convincing in daylight.
Yeah, you can see it really clearly now, coming around here. And I think some of these stones are actually bordering around the edges of it
Kind
as
of
well.
like what we would do for a campfire,
Exactly,
you mean, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But while I was cleaning the trench back, look what I found. A piece of pottery.
Why do you think it's pottery then?
Well, you can see where the black bit is. That is actually I think it's been burnt clay.
Right.
It's actually been burnt in the cooking process probably.
Yeah.
And the mica, all the little white flashy
Muscovite
bits.
mica, we call it in geology.
I think that's the temper that they've put into the clay.
Yeah.
So they probably use local materials to add to the clay. That's why it's so similar to the local geology. The really crucial question is, can you date it?
Well, so it looks Iron Age, which is good, that's what we want.
But how can you say that that's Iron Age?
Just by comparison with other pottery that's been found on Iron Age sites in Shetland.
Right.
It's the right sort of density, the right sort of inclusions, the right sort of shape, the right sort of coarseness.
But when you say the Iron Age, it's a very general term, isn't it? Because the Iron Age in Shetland just spread over such a long period of time. What we really need is a much more specific date than that, isn't it?
The other dating puzzle that needs resolving are the standing stones we discovered on the top of the hill.
Okay, so we got these quad bikes. It's either this or a 3-hour walk. These are the curious stones, Val.
They certainly are curious.
I mean, I know they're not big in terms of what standing stones are renowned for, I suppose, but we come across them. There's a long line of them. It seems to mark a fairway. There's one, and it goes off in that direction, and there's a couple on the other side as well. But
well, I think they're relatively recent. I mean, you look at that, and the stones are placed way on top of the peat, and where one's fallen out there, it's very, very shallow, the depth that it was in the peat in the first place.
Right, okay.
So these don't convince me, but You've got better ones, haven't you?
So there's another one.
So it is, yes.
Same sort of thing. Very, and they're all very, very shallow. I mean, that's the thing. That,
And I mean, even less so that one. I mean, that's.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, age? Oh, hundreds of years? No.
5
to 10 years. Oh, well, there you go.
I don't think any great age.
So someone is having a right folly with us, I think.
Well, I don't think with us. I think they're just doing it for the way of it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, it's worth a look anyway, wasn't it?
Definitely.
I thought finding 12 previously unknown standing stones was too good to be true. It's a bit embarrassing, but we should have spotted how shallow the stones were. I guess we all just got carried away by the strangeness of this ancient landscape. Who was the mysterious crofter with an urge to build megaliths? We'll probably never know. Back on the Bergie, Alice and Meg's trench on the edge of the cliff has revealed another hearth. But it's hard to tell at this stage whether it's a domestic fireplace. We found no evidence of structure, and at the moment, it just looks like an open-air fire.
There's not a definite edge to it at all.
It's not as easy to see as it was on the other trench, that's for sure.
There are areas of burning coming up everywhere, now alongside the outer edge of the blockhouse.
Bean, this is starting to look really good now. You see this area around here, how dark it is. You see the black there.
And then the slightly browner bits there.
Yeah, that's burnt soil. This, in fact, looks to me a bit like that hearth that I found down there. Or it could be a post hole. It's actually the right size for a post hole. Somebody's rammed a post in and then it's got burnt. You see all these stones around here? These could be packing material to pack the posts in.
Am I right saying this is outside? This is all exterior?
Yeah.
And this is the wall of the house?
That's right. And it continues over in that direction.
Right.
But what's really strange is how much activity is going on out here. You've got this post hole. If this is a post hole, then maybe there was a lean-to structure around here. If that's a hearth, why is a hearth outside the house? But the good thing is that every time I peel back another layer, we seem to be finding more and more clues as to what this is. We found the pottery there, and if you look down here, it's actually another piece of pottery. So, the more evidence that we get, the better the picture we'll finally get of this, what this blockhouse was put here for.
So far, we've got 2 hearths very close to the rear wall of the blockhouse, both with evidence of Iron Age pottery, probably cooking vessels. But it's very odd to have 2 fires so close together. Meg's gone over the edge to look at an area of erosion, to see if the burnt area extends out from Alice's trench. There are lenses of charcoal in several layers right through the section. This must have been a very substantial hearth or fire pit.
It looks like it disappears a little bit here. But we did find some pottery down on this level. I was looking around on the surface in the ground and it dropped down, and when I cleaned it off, you can see there's actually some incision in there. It's like a pattern that may have gone around whatever the feature was. So you would have had some sharpened stick or some sort of tool, maybe a bone that they stuck in to make that pattern.
Yeah,
and we've actually found
great.
about 4 pieces of pottery in this area in all different levels. The last couple I just picked out at the bottom here. And Val says they're a little bit finer there.
Decorated Iron Age pottery. Another small piece of evidence that proves that people were cooking and therefore living here. Our Iron Age residents wouldn't have been cooking in the open. There must have been a building. Whether it was stone built or wooden, there may still be traces over the edge. But this southern side of the Bergie has suffered the most from coastal erosion. Nevertheless, Mike takes Alice for a dangle to see if there's any trace of man-made structures.
So, what exactly are we looking for as we go down here?
Anything that looks like burning, any bits of pottery, anything that looks like it might be constructed rather than just natural. I can safely walk up to there, can I?
See, all this just looks completely natural, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
There's nothing but rock and quartz at the lower levels. But as they head back up, Alice spots a suspiciously straight line of stones.
I mean, unless it's rocks that have fallen down and tumbled to make themselves look like a wall. And it's definitely, I mean, the strata of this one is going this way, it looks like, and then this one's obviously going this way, and those are going that way. That sort of lends support to the argument that this is a wall.
I mean, I guess there's, what sort of...
A definite stone-built wall, which is proof that the blockhouse was not an isolated structure. Up till now, archaeologists have thought that blockhouses were single defensive buildings. We are starting to accumulate evidence that there was much more going on here. This could be a substantial settlement. But there's still one question that's really bugging me.
What were they doing on the Bergie in the first place?
Well, from my trench, I can definitely say that people were living there. We've got at least evidence of one hearth, if not two, although the second object that I found may actually be a post hole. It might be a lean-to structure outside that blockhouse. So, and we've got pieces of pot. It looks like people have been cooking up there. So what I really want to do tomorrow is actually extend my trench into the blockhouse and have a really good look inside there.
And in my trench, well, mine and Meg's trench, we've got more bits of charcoal coming out, we've got more pots coming up, so it looks as though the activity's sort of stretching further back along the Bergie as well. And there's also a wall. I've dropped off the edge this afternoon and had a look, and there's definitely a wall just below our trench. So there's building further down on the Bergie. I've also gone for a little wonder, and looking at these cliffs over here, I don't believe the whole thing about it being a seam of quartz there that they're especially protecting, because the quartz goes all the way up the coast. So I think it's a ritual site. I think that's the answer to it. I think it's a sacred place.
But I think saying ritual is far too easy. You know, if you don't understand it, you can just say ritual.
Okay.
I think some of those stones leading up to that place is somebody saying, hey guys, I'm really important, look at me, come down and see who I am.
There's more going on out there than just some ritual. I think maybe even more than just habitation, because we have 3 hot spots. You've excavated over one and gotten a hearth. We've excavated over another and gotten a huge burning area. It's really substantial. Burnt rock, things like that, ceramics.
But the big question for me is, we know it's Iron Age, and we expected that. But what were they doing on the Bergie in the first place? That's what I want to know. That's the burning question for me. Answer me that.
I don't know. I really don't know.
We've got less than a day left to find out.
We've only got a couple of hours excavation time left before we have to strike camp and navigate our way back through several miles of treacherous peat bog. It's a hive of activity here this morning, and we're finding lots of Iron Age pottery, but the team are still searching for that one vital and elusive clue that will tell us why people lived on the Bergie in the first place.
Val's been enlisted to excavate the hearth area to the side of the blockhouse. It's filled with large pieces of broken pottery, probably the remains of large cooking vessels.
Fantastic. Lovely piece.
This is just one of the many pieces of pottery that we found. We're getting loads of bits of information out of it. Lots of the pieces have got soot piling up on the outside, so they're all being used as cooking pots. And this is a really nice sherd. You can see a little notch there. That was actually where a handle went through, so it could be hung over a fire. By comparing the different types of steer-tight inclusions inside the pottery.
That's soapstone, yeah?
That's soapstone. That's all the sparkly material in here. You'll love this as a geologist. And we've got a date from that by comparing it to pottery from other sites. And that is 500 BC to 200 BC. So that's late Bronze Age, early Iron Age. And this is really great because so few blockhouses have been excavated and dated in Shetland. So this will give us a really good idea how it fits into the whole sequence of archaeology in Shetland.
This date is earlier than anyone expected, but it answers a question we asked when we came here. We can now confirm that rectangular blockhouses were the precursors to the round blocks. Quite why and when the transition was made will need further investigation. We've almost run out of time, and our work here is nearly done. Alice and Meg's trench has been completed and recorded, but not before one last, surprising find was made.
It's just a bit odd, and it looks like a pebble on first inspection.
It's very smooth, isn't it?
Well, Val came over and immediately said, "Oh, that's a Bronze Age ploughing instrument."
Really?
Yeah,
oh, great.
It's part of a Bronze Age or Neolithic plough.
Well,
so that's
even better.
amazing.
Yeah.
The ploughing implement implies agriculture, but what crops could they have been growing this far north? It's almost the end of our time on site, and Katie's finally cleaned back her hearth, revealing a carefully constructed rectangular fireplace. The scale of the fires and the amount of pottery is far greater than we could ever have hoped for.
I just can't get over the size of it. It's massive, isn't it?
Yes, but it seems Iron Age buildings in the north are. They are absolutely massive, and they're well built. They're stone built because that's the best resource we've got.
And this hearth here, that's not just for one family, is it?
It can be. It's absolutely typical of an Iron Age hearth, and you find them in buildings with absolutely huge dimensions of sort of 15 metres and much, much smaller buildings, many of which are sort of cellular. And in fact, it's just occurring to me that it could be, if you've got some of the stones here on edge, it could be that that's what we're in, a sort of cellular building.
We can now virtually reconstruct the layout of the blockhouse, complete with either single room cells or lean-to structures to the rear.
We're really starting to get a picture now, aren't we, of a big community living on this promontory, very self-contained, with industrial activity over there. They've got this massive building that you could live in here. And it's just perfectly easily to defend as well, isn't it? There's no way to get on it apart from that very narrow entranceway.
That's right, and you've got the quartz as well at the far end as well. You've got so much going for you if you're actually living on this promontory.
So we're really starting to sort of eradicate the whole sort of ritual purpose of this area. It doesn't seem to be just for one person. It's not like a chieftain living here. It's a real community.
Even though we've got masses of pottery to date the site, Katie's taking soil samples from inside the rectangular hearth. These could contain plant or animal remains, the organic residue of whatever our Iron Age residents were eating.
Val, have we contributed anything to your understanding of the site?
Definitely, because it had been suggested that these were just ceremonial gateways with nothing behind them. We've completely disproved that theory, which is great. And once we do the post-excavation, more information is going to come out of it. So I think it's been a really exciting and productive time.
And the answer to why they lived here?
It seems to be that one of Shetland's key resources is mineral wealth of all sorts of different types. So quartz as pure as you're suggesting, I mean, that's every reason to be on this particular area.
As we face the muddy trek back to civilization, it's still hard for me to imagine this remote place as a thriving community. The soil samples were found to contain unburnt grains of barley. So back in the Iron Age, the people here were baking bread, feeding their animals, or perhaps brewing beer, building their blockhouse as a secure focal point for the community and to protect their mineral wealth.